Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel here with the weather report here on your September the 3rd, 2025. Hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. Sorry I wasn't able to get on here yesterday. Had to take my daughter back to the airport yesterday, send her back to Los Angeles. Hate to see my baby girl leave, but anyway, we're back on here today. Gonna get you all situated. We got a lot to get into for this update. We're gonna talk about again, a hurricane's moisture it's going to come into the southwest. So a little concerned about some flooding into parts of Arizona, for example. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this brief hit and run heat wave I think we're going to see across the southeast going into the weekend. We're going to give you the latest on the tropics as well, which still remain relatively quiet. Still got one area of disturbed weather. I think we're going to see potentially Gabrielle later this week, but I'm not overly concerned about that. And we're going to talk about the overall weather pattern, which is definitely looking very, very progressive for by September standards, we shall say. Anyway, before we get into this full report, again, if you're coming into this after the live update, if you would like to join our Weather Nerds family, please consider subscribing to the channel. Again, we're kind of a no-nonsense type channel. We don't like to hype everything to death. We want to give you the information, keep you informed, and that way you can keep you and yours safe. Our motto here is real simple: be prepared and not scared. All right, well, let's talk about our extremes yesterday. We had a couple of them out there. We had 109 was in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's one of my concern cities for today with some of that tropical moisture we're going to talk about there. And our cold spot was Red Feather Lakes, Colorado at 26. That was our two hot areas out there. So anyway, let me get out of my studio mode here so I can do a little bit of a little telestrating, shall we say. Again, here's our tropical system down here, Lilani, that's going to be kind of moving up here into the southwest. It's going to augment these rain chances. No real flood watches out there just yet, but I'm concerned about that. We'll see how that works out. Here's our cold front here. This is our cold dump that's going to be bringing some very, very cool temperatures across the Great Lakes. Not really diving as far south what we thought we was going to see last week. But it's still going to be making its presence felt, especially heading into the northeast here with its cool down. Still going to bake out there in the west. You guys out there in the Pacific Northwest, you've been dealing with this heat. You're still going to be dealing with it. There's some changes in the long-range models here. I'll show you that here in a second. I kind of show you some relief is on the way. We'll get you into that here in just a second. Let's look at the weather map here. Kind of look at the big picture here again. See how that tropical moisture kind of working its way up here to the southwest. A little unsettled out here in the west as well. Some rains across Oregon into Nevada. Here's our cold front here. We got kind of a double whammy coming on down. Look at these temperatures, 35, 37. Yeah, we got some cold air coming down here. Some areas up in Minnesota, for example, might see a little snow, a little early to be seeing that, even for them. So we're right up in there potentially, maybe going into this upcoming weekend. I don't think it's going to amount to anything. I think most of it's going to stay up in Canada, but it's there. So anyway, you kind of see what's going on here with this frontal boundary. We got to watch this also from a tropical standpoint. You got to watch old fronts like this because sometimes you can get little spin ups in there. And the hurricane model, I'll show you that here. It's trying to do a little something with it, but nothing officially just yet. Just something you got to watch for those old boundaries when they get down to the south. All right, so let's talk about some of this rain. We got some pretty decent rains here and some thunderstorms here across Michigan here for this morning. Let's go ahead and check out that zone here for today. Here's some of that rain coming across Lake Michigan, coming through Green Bay. Had some pretty good heavy rains there earlier, and that'll be coming over to the other part of Michigan here real soon as it comes on across there. Again, associated with that one cold front coming on down. Looking at your current watches and warnings right now. Only flood watches out there across California. This is our heat out here across areas of red flag warnings here across Oregon, and the heat up across Washington State, Idaho, and into Montana. Unusually hot up that way. And I do suspect we're probably going to see some flash flood watches potentially into this zone here as some of that tropical moisture works its way northward. We'll see how much of advance it gets on that. I think it's a possibility, so we'll watch closely here over the next day or so. So let's go and talk about the tropics. We'll talk about that Pacific system as well. We'll first start out with our area disturbed weather out here in the Atlantic. Again, this showing about a 70% chance for development. I think this thing's going to stay up this way. It's going to turn off. We consistently having this weakness off the East Coast, and as long as that continues to be there and the long-range models continue to kind of show that it's lingering there, and I'll show you the European model to illustrate this point, that's going to act as a buffer. It means anything that comes out of the Atlantic, especially if it doesn't cut into the Caribbean, is going to be curving back out to sea, and that's continuing to be the weather pattern for now. For now, that could change, though, as we get deeper into the month. Here goes the satellite imagery. Another thing I did notice out here, you still notice this brown hue. Boy, I tell you, I have never seen this kind of dust kind of lingering that long. It's really been a big factor, inhibiting factor there in as far as wave activity coming off the west coast of Africa. So it's definitely impeded there. But we're watching this one here. There's another one out in front of it, but this is the one that's slated to develop here. Again, we got to watch those old frontal boundaries for potential development in the future. So that is the Atlantic. The Pacific side, we got Lorena. I said Lolani, didn't I say? Lorena and Keiko. Those are our two systems. So the Hurricane Keiko is going to continue to stay off here to the west, and then this one's moving up into the southwest. So again, I'm worried about Phoenix, for example. Could see some heavy rains potentially going into that area as that works to the north. So there's our two hurricanes out there. There's Lorena. And there's Keiko out here. That's Keiko's the stronger of the storms that's moving off toward the west. Not worried about either. One we're most concerned about is Lorena, because that one is going to really enhance that heavy rain threat across the southwest. And we'll show you those rain totals here in a second. So let's look at your INCIN's ensemble model here. So we kind of got this looping on through. Again, we're watching the system out here. Here's our Bermuda High up here to the north. It's kind of sitting there. It's going right around the edge of this thing. It's going to make that turn. Notice these little spin ups showing up right there. That's why I say we got to watch those. We got to watch those old frontal boundaries. But notice the turn to the north. They're all making that turn there. And that ridge just, normally this ridge is sitting over here. We call it the Bermuda High for a reason, and this thing's shifting way the heck over to the west. So as long as it's doing that, that persistent trough is going to stay off the east coast. So it's going to continue to turn those things up to the north. Now, as we go into the second half of September, we'll be watching very closely the Caribbean and into the Gulf. I think with the developing La Nina there in the Pacific activity will start to settle down here as we get deeper in the month of September, and we'll see less winds or wind shear across the Caribbean, which means a little more conducive for development. So we'll see how that works out, especially going from, say, the 15th to the end of the month, because the hazards outlook was kind of projecting a little more activity out that way. All right, let's go and talk about our weather hazards here. We do have severe weather risk for today. I do want to talk about that. Let's take a look at that system there in the middle of the country. Again, we do have a slight risk here across Kansas and into Missouri. So you kind of see the general thunderstorm risk here for the west and out in there, but it's really the middle of the country here. That's the problem. I'll zoom in a little bit closer here. So we're talking Kansas City, Wichita, under the gun for that slight risk, and then you got Jefferson City, Columbia, Dodge City in this green, and that marginal risk for severe weather here for today. Let's break down the categories here. Let's see, tornado risk. I got a 2% there across Kansas. That's something you don't see very often this time of year, but you do have that tornado risk right through there. And then you also have the wind threat, obviously, will be running in that slight category. Means gusty winds, 60, 70 mile per hour winds potentially with some individual cells this afternoon. And that'll, of course, be where a hail zone will also be in the same general areas there as well. So let's go pull out and take a look at your day two. Let's look at your day two outlook here. We'll take this front and we'll move it to the East Coast. So we're talking about New York Strait, getting all the way back to Tennessee and into the Carolinas, Virginia, West Virginia, getting this Kentucky as that front moves off. And you see the general thunderstorm threat continues for a lot of the west coast, the Intermountain region. Again, especially with that tropical moisture coming up here from the south. Here's that tropical depression status there. Getting close. Again, the heavy rain threat will be there in the southwest. And then day three, just a general thunderstorm threat from Maine all the way to Washington. Boy, you don't see that very often. Look at this. Maine all the way to the west coast. You don't see that very often for sure. And then South Florida, looking at some stuff there as well. So again, we're looking pretty good there with that. All right, let's go look at your severe weather risk here. Let's look at the heavy rain risk, I should say. Let's go look at that. Look at day one. Again, a little bit there in Florida, but really my concern is going to be down here in the southwest. Arizona, definitely under the gun as this moves as that moisture moves northward. There tomorrow especially, see the bigger area there across the southwest. So Tucson, getting through Phoenix, Nags Head, Nichols, again, that whole area here could be seeing potential for some heavy rains and some flooding, especially the urban areas. Tucson and Phoenix will be under the gun there. Then day three, it kind of lets up a little bit here across the west there, just a marginal from Oregon into the Four Corners area in Nevada under the gun there, and down there towards South Florida. So that's what we're looking at. Again, the flooding risk is my main issue for the southwest, Arizona especially, going in for tomorrow. All right, let's go talk about our model data here. Let's go look at that. We're going to first take a look at the NAM 3 kilometer. We'll look at that intermediate model first as we kind of got this going. Here's our frontal system kind of moving across the east. Here's our big cool dump here. That's the second front coming on down here. Again, it wouldn't shock me if we get a little snow across this portion of Minnesota, but not really showing it. There's a lot of it staying up here to Canada. See the blue up there? See that blue? It's just over the border, but yeah, it'll be close. and then you see the next cold up coming on down there. Here's our tropical moisture coming in from the south, coming in going into tomorrow. So Thursday, very slow moving to get this thing to move up here. But again, some of this moisture is going to feed up into this area here as the hurricane weakens rapidly. And where this is lingering, it is off the coast where the official forecast takes it inward. This is the NAM model. So regardless, with that moisture feed coming up through there, the monsoon and everything, Arizona and New Mexico will be under the gun there. And then we got this frontal system that'll be coming in on Friday, which is interesting with that frontal system coming across the south. It's actually going to heat up behind it, not cool off. It'll be another front coming into Saturday. This next plunge as it comes down here, this plunge here, this one coming on down here, that'll bring the front, that'll cool the temperatures down for Sunday and Monday going into early next week. And then the southeast weather gets really crazy for early next week. It could be wedged cool air there, and I'll show you that here in just a second to kind of illustrate that point as well. All right, so let's talk about the rainfall totals here. Again, obviously active weather here with that low pressure systems, a couple of them there with some heavy rains across the UP of Michigan. Got some pretty decent rains here across Tennessee, but you can see where the rains are with those cold fronts moving on through. And then, of course, we got to talk about the Southwest. So, and this, I think, is probably a little underdone, okay? You see, I see a bullseye of 4 inches there. Here's 3.5. This is 3 inches, 4.5. This only goes through Friday at 2 o'clock. So this could be lingering a little bit longer. So Arizona needs to be watchful of that potential going in here for the next day or so. So again, this only goes out to 60 hours. This goes out to Friday about 2 o'clock. All right. So let's go look at your temperatures here as we're going through the NAM here. Again, let me go ahead and loop this through here day by day here, going through your Wednesday afternoon here. So by your 5 o'clock temperature, again, we got heat across the Northwest, 100-degree temperatures again. It's been like a broken record for the Northwest. Here's our cool air across there. We're hot across Texas, marginally mild here across the east, but and hot in the Southwest. That's your Wednesday temperatures here. Let's go look at your Wednesday morning here. Wednesday morning here as we go toward 8 o'clock. So here comes that cool invasion. See a lot of that green on there. Some upper 30s in here as well. Some 30s here across portions of Minnesota. There's a 37 right there. So we got a nice cool shot coming down on the 4th of September. Really unusual to see that. Mild here across the south and mild here across the west. All right. Afternoon highs on Thursday. We'll practice up to about 5 o'clock here. Here we go. Again, still holding on to heat across Texas, the Northwest, the interior of California. Some of that moisture starts to more, well, look at the temperatures here in Arizona, man. They really back off as they get that rain threat coming up. Only hitting 91 in Phoenix showing for tomorrow, again, with that rain threat. 60s here across the Great Lakes. Got that cold front coming in here across the west. But again, once this front clear, some of this heat here across Texas is going to shunt into the southeast. We're going to see 90s in Alabama and into Georgia going into your Friday. So as you go into your Friday morning, 8 o'clock, here, look at all this cool air here in the west, really dumping down here across Montana, Wyoming, and into the Dakotas and the Great Lakes, looking pretty good indeed. Here's our next frontal system as we got a kind of a 1-2 punch coming at us here. And check out these temperatures here as we go in toward Friday afternoon. So again, we're getting some 90s now going up across Alabama into Florida Panhandle, back across Texas. Look at it, look, very sharp dividing line. Think you got a cold front right there? Yeah, pretty good bet. You got 96 and check that out. There you go, 96, 64. Yeah, pretty good bet. You got a pretty good cold front right through there. Pretty good one. Not bad by September standards, to say the least there. And then as we go into your Saturday morning, there's your look how much of the country's getting in the green, man. Quite a bit, almost half. We got a lot of 40s out there, and still kind of warm here in the east. Again, we got a 1-2 punch. It's kind of a delay with that second front coming in. So the cool air will not get into the southeast or back these temperatures off until probably Sunday for the most part as we go through the weekend. All right, so here's our overall weather pattern. We pull back out of here again as we're looking at this big trough there in the east, boy. I mean, that's a big one there going in for this upcoming weekend. It's going to linger here through the weekend. And as it does so, it may set up a wedge or so cool high pressure across the northeast and keep the southeast unusually cool. And then look what happens on the west coast. Big storm there on the west coast. That's going to back those temperatures up. So you guys in the northwest dealing with the heat, you got a nice cool down coming. It's coming. Get ready for the nice cool down as this comes on in going into the middle of next week. So we get a little bit of break. The heat kind of shifts into the middle of the country, but this persistent troughiness off the east coast, this thing lingers. I mean, look at this. It's still sitting there going into the middle of the month. So as long as that's sitting there from a tropical standpoint, that's going to continue to deflect anything that's coming out of the Atlantic that does not undercut into the Caribbean. Okay, so that's consistently is showing up there. Let's look at your again. You look at your forecast here. Another thing I'm starting to notice here on the European model is I'm starting to see some blue starting to show up on some of these mountains. So you know you're making that transition here. So here comes that heavy rain here running Thursday across the southwest. Here's our frontal system here. Here's our next one. We got one here and you got one here. So we got a couple of them we got to watch. Here's our frontal system kind of moving on down. This is our first one. It's the second one that's going to cool y'all down across the southeast. You guys got to wait. It's kind of weird. You got a front coming through and it's going to get hotter across the southeast. It's kind of so weird. And then we're going to see this next front kind of come on in here. They're coming across the southeast. Here goes into Saturday morning. Here comes that front. Kind of like see kind of lining up right through there as that cool air kind of filters on in here into Saturday. But still warm across the southeast on Saturday. And then this moves on through going on late Saturday and into Sunday. We'll see a nice cool down there across the east there. And looking pretty decent there across a lot of the country, really. And then as we go into the end of this run, we'll see that disturbance in the west. There goes that upper low dropping in out of the Gulf and into Oregon and into Washington State. So this is going to bring the cooler air, going to beat down that heat and make things much, much better out there on the West Coast, dealing with that summer heat as we go to the middle of next week. So definitely a topsy-turvy weather forecast, and then we'll see things kind of warm up in the middle of the country toward the middle of next week as well because of that big trough coming in on the West Coast. All right, let's go right this look at your temperatures once again. Here's your Saturday. Again, there's that cold front coming on through. You kind of see that coming on in there. Still got the heat lingering there on Saturday. Let's go into your Sunday afternoon highs here. Sunday morning, look at these lows on Sunday. Look at how much of the country, big cool down. Below normal temperatures for a lot of the country there on Sunday. Sunday afternoon highs. Where's the summer? Can't find it. South Georgia, South Texas, Arizona. You don't see any purple. Their summer's pretty much got the crap kicked out of it there. And then going into your Sunday morning or Monday morning here, you see a lot of the eastern half of the United States. Look at this, all these 40s out here. Look at that, 49, 47, 43 in New York State. Very cool here across there. And then we're finally starting to see some relief out here in the west. Still holding on to some 60s there. Let's look at your afternoon highs here on. There you go. Finally got some heat relief coming in toward the northwest here. The only hot spot I'm seeing is in the southwest. That's it. We do warm up here in the plains, though. We got 80s coming back at us here toward the middle of the week. As that cool air moves off toward the east, we're going to warm things up here in the plains going into Monday. And then going into your Tuesday morning. Again, kind of warmer up here in the plains, out here at the foothills. Cooler in the west. A lot more green showing up on this map. Cooler in the southeast. What's interesting for next week, I want to point this out. Let me back this up here. Check out these temperatures here across the southeast 60s. We got a wedge here setting up here across Georgia, the Carolinas. I mean, look at that, 58. That's an afternoon high there on Monday. I want another run on that to see if that's going to hold true. But it looks like we get wedged there for Monday and Tuesday next week here across the southeast because even going out to 5 o'clock, it's still showing the 60s here on the American GFS model. So I want to see if this is going to hold true, if we're going to have a wedge in there or not. We do warm up in the plains, as I mentioned. We do warm up there in the middle of the country going into our Tuesday, and that goes to Wednesday as well. Look at these Wednesday afternoon highs here. Again, here, because the summer heat coming out in the middle of the country. Cooler here in the east, cooler here in the west, but a big warm up in the middle because we've kind of got a little bit of a squeeze play going on between those two troughs. All right, so let's look at your climate outlook here. Again, I think you're going to see what we're going to pretty much outline. This is your 6 to 10 day. Obviously, we get the big cool down there in the east, staying in place there, especially across New England. There's a cool down in the west, and we're hot out here in the plains. That's kind of lining up with what we just looked at going into next week, the next 6 to 10 days. This is for the 8th to the 12th, and then from the 10th to the 16th, still holding on to the coolness here across the east. Again, we got that linger trough across the east coast here. A little bit cool out here toward California and Nevada, but still hot here in the middle of the country. So that building heat will come back in the middle of the country as we head in toward the middle of the month, going in toward the 10th to the 16th. Precipitation-wise, check that out. Hello. Big wet there across the northwest going into the 8th to the 12th there. Drier across the Great Lakes. It starts to dry out here across the southwest after the rain they're going to get here this week. They're probably going to need that. And then the 8th to the 14th, there we got a couple of dry spots here across the Great Lakes, here across Arkansas and Texas. Still wet here across the northwest and across the southeast as we go deeper into the month, going to the middle of the month. So anyway, that's what we're looking at here on your weather report update here for today. Not boring. You can't say it's not boring, that's for sure. We got fall weather, we got summer weather, we got tropical moisture coming in the southwest. We got activity in the. I really think the Atlantic's someone's going to flip that switch. It's just going to get really crazy busy, I think, as we go to the end of September, early October, with La Nina kicking in across the eastern Pacific. Forecast to strengthen here through the month of September. conditions in the Caribbean and the Gulf are going to get better. Less wind shear in those areas. The only inhibiting factor that's continuing to linger, obviously, is that dust out there in the middle Atlantic, which climatologically should be letting up. We should see things begin to improve out there this morning. All right, who we got out there? We got Justin out there watching this morning. Good to see you there, Justin. Good morning to you guys out there. Again, I appreciate you guys checking out your weather report update here for today. I got the YouTube algorithm has pretty much dumped me completely now. I'm not sure what to do with that. I guess I'll need to work on my thumbnails and some tagging stuff. Was doing pretty well when I was reporting pretty well. I got a few hundred views on this at a regular basis, but since then it's pretty much dropped off. Just when you think I got the YouTube algorithm figured out, they change it on me. So way it goes, I guess. All right, that's y'all's update for today. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe.